So the other day I was perusing a website called pricecharting.com trying to learn how valuable my meager game collection is. And I came across some truly astronomically valued games for Atari, TurboGrafx, Sega, and Nintendo systems. But before we check these out though, let me tell you that I am only including individual games that were meant to be sold to consumers. That means no competition carts, flash carts, test carts, repros, or prototypes. Now I am primarily focusing on the game's complete in-box values as shown on price charting as of March 2024. Okay, so let's get started with the Sega Genesis game called Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel. Wow, this one's rare, or at least rather pricey. Looks like it's going for $547 complete in the box, which isn't cheap, but you know, it's not something that's totally gonna break the bank. But basically this is a side-scrolling platform game that has some really incredible graphics, actually. I mean, even in this very early desert stage, the background has multiple parallax layers, and there's a lot of detail in the trees and the desert itself and the characters and the animation. This one is really good. I was very surprised. Let's check out some other stages here. We've got like a temple stage here. And this one looks like some kind of a lava cave stage. Also, it has some platforms here, so I don't know. This is like a mining stage or something, maybe? Then we have this other stage where you're piloting a jet ski. And yet another one where you're jumping up in a tree, which, you know, is probably where a squirrel is most at home. So yeah, Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel really surprised me. I thought this was a fun game with some good graphics, animation, and sound effects. Also, it plays really well. Although I'm not a fan of this boss, so that's for sure. He's too tough for me. Our next game is Paprium for the Sega Genesis, and it is a homebrew game by Watermelon Studios, and it looks like it's running for $282 loose and $612 complete in box. And I think this one really wants to be the greatest beat-em-up of all time because the graphics, music, sound, animation, and everything in the game are just top-notch. And really it's no surprise because I believe this game has a special chip in it, so you wouldn't be able to download this and play it on your EverDrive, unfortunately. But I've always been a big fan of beat-em-ups, and this one, again, looks really, really fun. I'm not actually playing it here, I'm borrowing some footage from another YouTuber, because I don't own this game, and the ROM is pretty much impossible to find. Alright, I do know that there are 3 playable characters, but in this video we're just watching Alex kick some major butt. Check out some of these other stages we got here. We've got the subway that looks very similar to Final Fight with the swaying handlebars there. We have an escalator stage, which looks really cool. I like that guy in the background. That's neat. And then this one looks like, I don't know, the lobby of a high-tech hotel or something. Oh, looks like she got herself a pipe there. Oh yeah, there, start beating them up. There you go. That's it, just keep beating them up with that pipe. Looks like we can get like a exosuit kind of thing. Wow, that is really cool. So that's Paprium. I've never been able to play it, but it looks freaking awesome. Next we have MUSHA for the Sega Genesis, and it looks like it's going for $712 complete in the box. And this is a pretty popular top-down shooter. It's got some great graphics and sound and gameplay, a lot of different weapons, and I would say it is one of the more popular Sega Genesis shooters of all time. I find it to be pretty hard though. And here's a boss who looks like he's spitting some metal bits out of his mouth. So it's hard to argue against MUSHA being an awesome game, but is it really worth that much money? You know, I'll let you decide that. Next we have Crusader of Centy, which is running $1,248 for a complete in-box copy. And and this is an RPG, which, you know, I've never really been a big fan of RPGs, but this one does look pretty cool. It's hard not to compare every RPG to Zelda, though. Alright, let's set off into the wilderness and see what we can find here. I like the clouds in the sky there. There's kind of shadows on the ground. Looks like we found some, I don't know, are those turtles or something? Oh, yeah, we can just climb over and skip past them. There we go. Oh, there we go. I just jumped up to the next level. One thing I really like about this game is that it doesn't waste a whole lot of time getting to the fun. You know, a lot of RPGs, they'll have a bunch of text that you have to wade through for 20 minutes, and then maybe you'll get to go fight some monsters. But this one, you get right into it very quickly. And lastly, we have what I think is the Genesis's most expensive game, and that is one called Outback Joey, and it was published by Heartbeat Corporation, specifically designed to work with the Heartbeat Catalyst sensor. And what it does is monitor your heart rate, and somehow you're able to play the game by monitoring your heart rate. I don't really know how this works. And I was never able to get the ROM to work for me because I don't have this piece of hardware. But this other fellow was able to get it to work with a different emulator than I use. And here you go, this is Outback Joey. It looks like an endless runner game, and we're just running through the outback, hopping on tree branches and avoiding rats and bees and condors and stuff like that. I do kind of like the graphics here. It reminds me of a lot of other Sega Genesis games at the time. You know, like Taz or Roadrunner or something like that. I do wish it had some more parallax in the background, though. Oh, in this part I noticed that Outback Joey is wearing Apollo Creed's colors that he gave to Rocky in Rocky 3. You know, the red, white, and blue. What makes Outback Joey so incredibly valuable is that there was only a production run of 1,000 units, and it only came along with the personal trainer from Heartbeat Corporation. Anyway, Outback Joey is the Genesis's most expensive game that was meant for consumers to play. Alright, next let's move on to the TurboGrafx 16, and the first game I want to talk about here is called World Sports Competition. I don't think I've ever heard of this game, but it looks like it's going for quite a pretty penny at $499 complete in box. It's not on the Mini, and it's not in any collection that I've ever seen, but as you can see, it is a sports game, kind of in the vein of track and field. Let's see if I can do the long jump here. Ooh, I made it, just barely. And now we got some swimming action. And here's archery. And we got some rowing here too. Whoa, there's a lot of events in this game. Naturally, we got the 110-meter hurdles. And some pistol shooting, which I kind of like the pistol shooting. And here's trap shooting, which I really wasn't too much of a fan of. We also got javelin. And finally, the discus. Definitely a lot of fun events in this game, and it's got some nice graphics and sounds and even voice. Here we have one of the classic shooters for the Turbo, and that is Soldier Blade. And it looks like this one's going for $550 complete in the box. This is a really fun shooter with some awesome graphics and great weapons to choose from. Also, I find the music to be top-notch. This is such a fun shooter. I think this is pretty much at the top of my list of TurboGrafx 16 shooters. Next we have Bonk 3, Bonk's Big Adventure. And it looks like this one's going for $650 complete in the box. I never thought a Bonk game would be this expensive. As you probably know, this is a really fun side-scrolling platform game. You can climb the walls with your teeth. I always thought that was kind of funny. And bash your enemies with your head. Sometimes you can find some meat, and that will give Bonk some extra strength. And of course, there's a lot of variety in the stages. We're going to go through some caves here, swim around and eat candy and get really, really tiny. And if you get the blue candy, you turn into Giant Bonk, which I find to be really impressive that the Turbo can do sprites this big. Here we are in the hold of a ship. And we gotta fight this boss. Bonk 3, great game, very expensive if you want to buy it. Here's a game called Legend of Hero Tonma, and this appears to be going for nearly $1,325 complete in the box. And this is a side-scrolling action game. It's kind of like a magical version of Contra. Your character will shoot different magical projectiles here, and you have to get the keys to move on and avoid the monsters and the ghosts and all that kind of stuff. Don't forget to collect the coins. The graphics aren't terrible, they're kind of plain in some areas. Same thing for the music, it's not really that spectacular, but you know, overall it does the job. Oh, let's get the skeleton boss. Hey, you want some of this? Come on over here, buddy. Just gotta avoid that green thing that he keeps shooting at me. I think if we get in this spot right here, his green weapon does no good. So I can just stand here and just keep hitting him. This is kind of a fun game. I enjoyed it. I don't know that I'd pay $1,300 for it, but it's pretty cool. Our next game is known as the Holy Grail of TurboGrafx 16 games, and it is Magical Chase, which will run you $8,000 complete in the box. To me, that's just absolutely insane. This is a side-scrolling shooter game where you play as a cute little witch, and she has to shoot the enemies with her magical projectiles. You can go into the shop and buy new weapons and power-ups. And naturally, when you get to the end of the stage, you have to fight a boss. The graphics in this one are just absolutely beautiful, and it kind of looks like it has some true parallax scrolling. This is kind of a green forest kind of stage. And then here's another stage where you have to fly through a, I don't know, some kind of flying contraption thing. So Magical Chase, yes, is a fun game. It's also very, very, very expensive. So if you happen to have a copy, take really good care of it. Alright, the next system on our list is the Super Nintendo, and we'll start with a little game called EarthBound. Now, I have included EarthBound here because I know if I didn't, everybody would be asking me, where's EarthBound? It's one of the most valuable games ever. Well, it's only 6th on my list. It's only going for about $1,687 complete in the box. Now, this is an RPG game, and generally speaking, I'm not really big on RPGs, but I did play EarthBound for a little while, and surprisingly, it drew me in. I really like the graphic style in the game. It's not too over the top, but it's just very clean, and I kind of like that look. So basically, you're awakened by a loud crashing outside, and you and your friends travel to the top of this hill, and you see a meteorite crashed in the ground. What could that possibly mean? I don't really know since I haven't played this game all the way through yet. So along the way, you kind of fight your standard enemies. You got snakes and dogs and this alien guy. I guess his name is Starman Jr. But again, I was kind of surprised. As a person who doesn't really care for RPGs, this one was kind of fun. Next we have a game called Hagane, which is a side-scrolling action game, and it's going for about $2,474 complete in the box. This is another game that I've never heard of, so you'll have to forgive me if it's something that you've played many, many times before in the past. It reminds me a little bit of Shinobi in that you are traveling left to right, shooting enemies with, they're not really shurikens, but they're more like some kind of projectile weapon that a ninja would use. Now, I wasn't able to get too far into the game because, you know, I suck at games, but from what I can tell, it's got some really nice graphics and sounds and music and controls really well. This is a pretty fun game. Here we have a game called Exertainment Mountain Bike Rally Speed Racer. This is a collection of a couple of different games that you have to use a special stationary bicycle with, and I wasn't able to really play it because I don't have this stationary special bike, and I couldn't configure my emulation to pretend that I had one. So basically this was an Exercycle that came with this particular game, I think. I could be wrong. I don't know all the exact details of this. I just know that it's very, very expensive and hard to get. So here's some footage of the promotional tape to kind of give you an idea of what this is.
Simply attach the controller to the handlebars, attach the Exertainment module to your Super Nintendo Entertainment System, plug in your bike, insert your game, and you're ready to ride.
And then here's someone who actually has one of these crazy things. Now this game is going for $2,500 loose, and I don't know that there is a complete in-box version of it, but there is a new in-box version that's going for $11,000, so good luck with that. Now I'm sure this is just for the game, not for the Exercycle itself, so if you happen to find it in the wild and it's $50 or something like that, yeah, I definitely would go for it. Next we have Zombies Ate My Neighbors, and I know what you're thinking. I have that game. That game can't possibly be worth all that much, but it's really the label and the box that make this game much more valuable than the typical version of Zombies Ate My Neighbors. And if you do happen to have this box and label variant, it will go for nearly $3,000 complete in the box. Or if you have it loose, almost $700. Now here you can see the difference between the two label variations. If you have the one on the right, definitely take care of it. Aside from that, the game is the same. There's really no differences. Your goal is to save the residents of the town from these zombies by using your, well, I think water gun. Because all zombies hate water, that's a well-known fact. I've always found this game to be very enjoyable. It's kind of fun, zapping those zombies, and there's a bit of a puzzle element as well as you try to figure out how to get over to the humans and rescue them. Sometimes they're behind a hedge or behind a locked door or something. You have to figure out how to get in there to save them. The graphics are nice and the sounds are good. This is a really fun game. Even better if you have that really expensive label variation. Next we have Spiderman Maximum Carnage, and this one is going for $3,050 complete in the box. And for some reason it said it was going for $2,000 new in the box, which, I don't know, I think there's something wrong there. That may have just been the last time it sold new in the box for $2,000. Anyway, this is a fairly competent side-scrolling beat-em-up featuring your favorite neighborhood Spider-Man, who looks like he's in his mid-30s. I don't know, I always thought Spider-Man was kind of like a 16-year-old kid, not this big, tall, older guy. Aside from the typical punching, you can use your web to tie up your enemies. You can also create a web shield, and naturally you can swing on the webs if you like. The game is extremely repetitive, at least here in the early stages, but overall it's pretty fun. I like this part where you have to climb the side of the building and avoid these laser blasts that are coming at you, and you get the little spidey sense that tells you which way to go to avoid getting hit. And then once you get to the top, you have to fight Doppelganger and Black Cat, and basically they just knock you off the side of the building. Not a bad fighting game, but the graphics are just a little repetitive. And the most valuable game that I could find for the Super Nintendo is Aero Fighters. And that one is going for $3,166 complete in the box. This is a top-down shooting game, and it has some nice graphics, good sound, and some pretty cool weapons. I like how parts of the game are destructible. Like, these buildings are all nice and pristine up until I come around and blow them up. But you got your typical enemies, your choppers, your jets, and of course a boss here at the end, which I just like hitting him with that super bomb. What's cool about this game is depending on the jet that you choose, you have a different kind of super weapon. And mine is just the one where you kind of flip over and drop a bomb on him. I like that. I found this to be a pretty fun game. It's got some nice graphics and good music and sounds, but yeah, it does get very repetitive, just like any other shooter does. Next, let's move on to some rare and expensive Atari 2600 games, starting with a game called Out of Control, and this one is going for $1,907 complete in the box. And basically this game I would compare to something like skiing, where you're kind of going through a slalom, except that you are a spaceship. You have to go through these gates and pass by these arrow-shaped things on the correct side. The ship kind of looks like the ship from Asteroids, but the control is way more difficult. Once you get to the end of the stage, you have to collect the little green orbs. And once you've collected enough of those green orbs, you have to dock with, I don't know, is that a space station or something? And once you have docked with the station, you are shown your final time. Naturally, you want to try to beat that time every time you play the game. I don't really find this game to be all that fun, but I can see where it could be used for competitions. Now, Out of Control is the 6th most valuable game that I could find for the Atari 2600, but it's pretty close in value to our 5th game, which is Red Sea Crossing. This is a side-scrolling game that was only released by mail order back in 1983, and back in 2007 it was discovered at a garage sale. Now, only 2 of these games have been found, so it is one of the rarest games ever made, and it's going for over $1,900 loose. Now, I don't think there is a complete in-box version that was found, and definitely not a new-in-the-box version that was found. In the game, you play as Moses, who has parted the Red Sea, and you're supposed to get across to the other side. You have to avoid giant clams and seaweed and fish and crabs. Also, you have to avoid these, I guess they're the Egyptians shooting arrows at you. Now, I wasn't able to get to the other side of the Red Sea, so I don't know if this game even has an ending. It just keeps going on forever, I guess. But hey, if you happen to be at a garage sale and you're looking through somebody's Atari games and you see one called Red Sea Crossing, you may have just hit the jackpot. Next we have a game called Lochjaw, and I was sure that I had this game because I've played it before. And yeah, I actually have 2 copies, except it's not called Lochjaw, it's called Shark Attack. Turns out Lochjaw was the original game, and they decided to change it because they were worried about the name being too similar to the name Jaws. But if you happen to find a copy of Lochjaw, it's going for $2,018 complete in the box. Loose, it's only $1,500, but, you know, I would still take a loose copy if I could get it for cheap. Basically, in the game, you swim around and collect dots, trying to avoid the shark. The game is kind of annoying because if you get too close to the walls, you get stuck on them really easily. Pretty simple game, it's got some nice graphics, but honestly, I don't really enjoy it that much. That stupid shark is always getting me before I can get back to my ship. Oh, man, stupid shark. Next we have a game called Malagai. Malagai? I don't know how to pronounce it, but I do know how much it's going for, and that is $2,075 complete in the box. Essentially what you have to do is touch the aliens in the order that it's showing on the top of the screen there, and then once you touch them you can go to the gate at the top and open one of them up. If you happen to touch the wrong alien, or you run out of time before you can get to that gate, you have to go down to that green area to reset. Once you touch all 3 aliens, you can exit the stage and move on to the next one. Graphics are not really that great, but what do you expect for an Atari game? Hey, at least the maze changes in between stages, that's pretty cool. I could see myself playing this a lot back in the day. Here is Eli's Ladder, which is essentially a math tutor game. And speaking of math, the game is going for over $5,000 complete in the box, which is complete insanity if you ask me. But it's very simple. All you have to do is look at the math problem on the screen and solve it, and then your little guy will move up a rung on the ladder. Now, as far as I can tell, there's only subtraction and addition in the game, and you can make the problems as easy or as hard as you want. Not a great game by any means, but I'm sure that's why it is so valuable today, because not a lot of people bought it. I mean, seriously, who wants to play a game of math problems? Lastly, we have one of the most expensive games ever made, and that is Air Raid. This game is going for over $33,000 complete in the box. Or if you find it loose at a garage sale, $8,143. I mean, that just blows my mind how expensive this game is. And it's really even nothing special, it's just a little shooter game. Basically just shoot the enemies before they collide with your city. The gameplay is, repetitive and boring. But if you happen to have this game in your collection, you are one lucky gamer, that's for sure. Even more lucky if you only paid, $50 for it when it originally came out. The nice thing about this game, though, is it's easy to spot because it uses a really strange cartridge design. So keep your eyes peeled if you happen to be at any garage sales. And finally, let's move on to the games for the Nintendo Entertainment System, starting with the Flintstones Surprise at Dinosaur Peak. Now this one looks to be going for $3,113 complete in the box. There's actually 2 Flintstones games. The Surprise at Dinosaur Peak is the really valuable one, and the other game is the Rescue of Dino and Hoppy, and that's, not quite as valuable. And what adds to the confusion is that both of these games are basically the same in terms of gameplay and the graphics. This is a side-scrolling action game where you play as Fred Flintstone, and you can climb on top of houses and cliffs and watch out for dinosaurs that are attacking you. It can be a little tricky trying to climb up the edges of the platforms here, but I did finally get the hang of it. I'm not going to say this is a hard game because, generally speaking, I just suck at games. But yeah, I wasn't able to get all that far into it. But I really love the graphic style and the music, and the gameplay is really fun too. I don't know if it's worth $3,100, but it's definitely a fun game. Our next game on the list is Hot Slot, and this is an unlicensed game for the Famicom/Nintendo Entertainment System, in which you play a slot machine. But depending on how well you do, you might get to see some, well, let's just say cute girls. This one appears to be going for $3,208 complete in the box, but yet new in the box is $2,664. I guess that's just a case of they haven't updated the new in the box price lately. To be honest, this is more or less a run-of-the-mill slot machine game. You just add your coins and make bets based on a possible diagonal or horizontal win. And I usually just throw in a bunch of coins just to, play the odds. But there are 3 different slot machines that you can choose: Cutie Bunny, Juicy Fruits, and Las Vegas. And each one looks a little bit different and has different, well, I guess objects there in the slot machines themselves. Overall, I guess it's a good game if you like slot machines. I played it for quite a while, and I never saw any of the cute girls in the game. What's the deal? I guess I have to make a real lot of money before they'll show up. Our next game is called Little Samson, and this one is running about $4,443 complete in the box. And this is an amazing side-scrolling action platform game. You play as one of 4 different characters: Little Samson, Kikira the Dragon, Gam the Golem, or KO the Mouse, on a quest to stop the Dark Prince from taking over the world. Now, each of these characters have different characteristics. Little Samson, for example, can jump higher, and he attacks by throwing bells. Kikira the Dragon attacks by spitting fire. Gam the Golem is a rock monster with a gigantic punching arm. And KO the Mouse is, well, a mouse who can get into some really narrow passages. The graphics in this game are just so phenomenal. I mean, sure, there's no parallax in the background, but there's always something awesome to look at. For example, look at the detail in this stage where I'm playing as Gam. Everything just looks really, really good. And in addition to the graphics, the music is just fantastic. So yeah, $4,443 is a pretty hefty price to pay for this game, but the fact that the game is this good, it kind of does take the sting out of the price. At the opposite end of the spectrum of good to bad games is our next one, and that is Cheetah 2, which is going for $5,079 complete in the box. Now, back in 1996, apparently 1,500 cartridges of Cheetah 2 were discovered, so I guess that's why it's as rare as it is. There's only 1,500 cartridges out there? Anyway, Cheetah originally appeared on the Action 52 cartridge, but the sequel we're looking at here appeared on a standalone cartridge. I guess Active Enterprises thought Cheetah 2 would be good enough to carry a whole cartridge by itself. But this is a terrible side-scrolling action game with really glitchy graphics, awful music, and incredibly annoying and boring gameplay. This is definitely one game that deserves all the scorn that it gets. It is just so awful. And in my opinion, it is definitely not worth $5,079. If you're one of the 1,500 who are lucky enough to have this game, I say, have at it. I'm not a fan of this game at all. Okay, here's one that was a huge surprise to me, and that is Mega Man. What? Mega Man is valuable? Well, this particular variation of Mega Man is valuable, and that would be the 5-screw Mega Man, because there's only 84 of them known to exist. Now, if you have Mega Man in your collection, I want you to go look at it right now, flip it over, and count the number of screws that it has. If your Mega Man has 5 screws on it, then it could be worth over $36,000 complete in the box. Or if it happens to be brand new in the box, $146,971. Whoa! Anyway, as for the game, Mega Man is one of those classic NES games that just spawned numerous sequels on that system, as well as more games on the Super Nintendo. Anyway, it's a side-scrolling shooting game where you play as the character Mega Man, and your goal is to reach the boss, defeat the boss, and then steal his superpowers. Now, I pretty much suck at this game, and honestly, it's never been one of my more favorites, but I can understand why it's a beloved game. Especially if I had a 5-screw, I would love it a lot more. So if you have a 5-screw Mega Man, definitely take care of it. And finally, the most valuable game that you as a consumer could have bought in the store is a little game called Stadium Events. Now, Stadium Events might seem a little familiar to you if you have the Power Pad, because the game and the Power Pad itself was purchased by Nintendo and converted into a game called World Class Track Meet. And because Nintendo purchased this game and changed it, that's why this game is so valuable today, going for $42,000 complete in the box. We don't really know how many copies are out there. It's believed to be about 10,000 because that was the minimum number of games that Nintendo required to be produced. But it's possible that Nintendo stopped that when they decided to buy the game. We don't really know. Basically, in the game, you hook up the Power Pad and you compete in multiple events. Just don't run yourself ragged running on that Power Pad. The graphics and the sounds are really nothing special, and honestly, I don't know that I would want to play this game running on a power pad. I'd probably have a heart attack in about 2 minutes, so I'm not really sure this game is for me. So if you happen to have a copy of World Class Track Meet, don't confuse it with Stadium Events, because that's the game that's going to make you the envy of all your video game peers. Alright, well there you go, 28 of the most valuable games ever created. So do you happen to have any of these really valuable games? Please let me know down in the comments. Also, I'd be curious to know what is your thoughts on collecting in general. With all that said, I want to thank you for watching, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye everyone.